Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, the latest Pokemon film, has not yet seen an American release, but it has been released in theaters in Australia, and most recently, it has aired on Canadian television. So we do have a English dubbed version out there on the internet for people to watch. Please come to North America soon. Anyway, so I actually got the chance to watch it, and wow, that was bad. Really, really bad. Like, that was bad. Like, oh my goodness, it was bad. You guys know how much I dislike Destiny Deoxys. This film might just be worse than that. That is how bad this film was. It's going to take me forever to get to the video Everything Wrong with Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, because I'm doing them in chronological order, and the next one up is Victini and Zekrom, which comes out on December 3rd, and then the Kira movie, and then Genesect, and then Diancie, and then Hoopa. See, that's going to be several months away. But since this is fresh in my mind, I decided to do something a bit different. I am actually going to review Hoopa and the Clash of Ages for all of you guys, as I see it. And first of all, these are my opinions. Feel free to agree with them or disagree with them as you wish. Second of all, major spoilers for the film. So if you don't want to be spoiled before watching the film, shut off this video right now. I'll give you a second. Okay, so I have here on my computer screen all of the points. Let's actually start with the good ones, and there are quite a few. I'm not saying this film is the worst ever. That belongs to Fantastic Four. This was actually a fairly okay film. Not good, okay. There's a difference. So, the biggest good point, in my opinion, is Hoopa's voice actor. The voice acting for Hoopa Confined was really, really good. Like, way better than I thought it would be when I first saw the teaser for the film. I mean, compare the teaser voice
Did I scare you?
to the voice that you hear in the film.
Were you surprised?
There's a huge difference, and this new Hoopa is so enthusiastic about everything. It sounds like the voice actually fits the character, which is really, really nice. And honestly, something that doesn't happen too much in the Pokemon movie, so it's glad to see that they actually nailed it with this one. The basic premise of the film is pretty solid as well. A group of people trying to help Hoopa attain its true form, and then that true form going bad, and then it's just a battle of trying to make everything okay. It's a good premise, but I'll get to why that fails later. The final showdown between all of the legendaries, it was amazing. That's probably one of the best Pokemon battle sequences I've ever seen in a movie or in the TV show. It was really, really well put together. There were tons of legendaries that just battled it out. There were probably 20 minutes straight of just legendaries clashing and having fun, and that was amazing. That's when I think of a Pokemon movie, that's what I think about. Not all of this stuff that's been happening in recent Pokemon movies with, you know, you gotta battling is wrong and all that stuff. I guess that's not too recent, is it? But having just legendaries battle it out constantly, that I think is what makes a good Pokemon movie usually. So that was great. Another good point is that this is actually the first time that I can think of that Ash actually looked like a Pokemon master. It was really, really cool. He was everywhere to be seen throughout the last maybe half hour of the film. Whenever the legendaries were battling, he was riding on Latios, and Rayquaza, ordering them to use specific moves. Now, the only reason he would know those specific moves is because he's that familiar with those Pokemon. That does leave a plot hole, as he never actually saw a Latios beyond the one in Pokemon Heroes, and that Latios only ever used Safeguard. But this is great. This is great character development for Ash, and really helps me to think that his dream of becoming a Pokemon Master might actually happen. He knew the Pokemon's attacks, he saw things coming, and he ordered the perfect counterattack from these 3 Dragon Pokemon, and oh my goodness, that was just amazing. It really is showing that the XY series, at least, Ash is finally coming of age. He's finally getting close to attaining his dream of becoming a Pokemon Master, which is great. And then the last good point I have is, despite how much I don't like this film, its plot actually was not that predictable. It actually had me keep guessing about every 5 minutes about what would happen next. Until maybe the last 10 minutes, then it got a little predictable. But before that, it was just nice. It was, oh my goodness, it had you guessing about what would happen, what legendaries would be called, what would happen to Hoopa Confined or Hoopa Unbound, and it was just great. The last time I've seen a film with a plot twist, like plot twists left and right, like you would see in this film, I can't remember, and that's pretty good. A film with a lot of plot twists, as long as it's not too many, is great. This one had, I think, just the right amount. So those are my good points for Hoopa and the Clash of Ages. Now let's go ahead and look at the bad stuff. The first one is the biggest one. The biggest thing that just stuck out like a sore thumb with me in this film. There are way too many legendaries. I'm not even going to count them up. But let's see. Hoopa Unbound calls 6. Hoopa itself is a legendary. The Llama God shows up. That's a legendary. Hoopa Confined calls, I think, 4 other legendaries. And then in the flashback, we see another 3. There might be even more that I can't remember. But they're all different legendaries. And I mean, if they had maybe called up Ho-Oh, that would have been great, because Ho-Oh has yet to be seen in a movie outside of cameos or Pokemon that have transformed to look like Ho-Oh. A real living, breathing Ho-Oh would have been great, but no, we had to see Lugia. Heck, we had to see Dialga and Palkia for the 4th time in the movie series. If this was maybe the series finale for Pokemon, I could justify so many legendaries, but as it is, it's not. It's just exploitation for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. That's basically what it is. Now, I did love seeing all the legendaries. I'm very happy, of course, that Latios and Latios were in this, because they're my favorite legendaries. There were a lot of people's favorite legendaries in this film, but there was a lot of legendaries that weren't anywhere to be seen. It makes you wonder, why did they pick and choose these specific legendaries to appear? Who knows? In any case, there are way too many of them. If there's something like a dozen or more in a single film, then that's just way too much. Unless, like I said, it's the series finale, and this wasn't. This was just a random movie that we're getting kind of used to at this point, let's be honest. Okay, one big thing about the legendaries is that Ash only recognizes about half of them when it's pointed out that there's a sort of pennant that is representative of the Llama God. Ash doesn't recognize it. It's Clement who recognizes it. And it seems only because Clement is actually pretty knowledgeable about these kinds of things. Not because it's the god of all Pokemon, but because some inventor just happened to look it up one time. Not because Ash actually saw one only 6 movies ago, but because other reasons. And then he does recognize Latios and Latios, which I was very happy to see. He does recognize Rayquaza, but then there's other ones that he doesn't recognize, like Kyogre and Groudon. That is actually kind of understandable, because he's never seen Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre. So that is understandable. But what about the other ones? What about Palkia and Dialga? What about Reshiram and Zekrom? What about all these other ones that we know he's seen, but he looks at them bewildered, like, what is that? That just, continuity. Great job, movie makers. The other problem is that the half that he doesn't recognize are actually not even mentioned by name. Hoopa Unbound is never called the Unbound form, it's called the True form, which I guess is fine, since maybe it just doesn't have an official name in the anime canon. I can accept that. But what about Groudon Kyogre? If the casual movie viewer looks at this film without knowing any of the Pokemon that appear, if you don't mention them by name, they're not going to recognize that this Primal Groudon and this Primal Kyogre are primal forms of Groudon and Kyogre. They're going to think they're completely different Pokemon, and then rack their brains around trying to figure out what they're actually called. Dialga and Palkia never called by name. Reshiram, Zekrom, Regigigas never called by name. It's a little bit of an ulcer, for lack of a better word, to see them on screen and then never see them acknowledged by name. I don't know why this is bugging me so much. I guess I'm just thinking about all those people who watch this as a casual viewer and not as a hardcore Pokemon fan. And if the filmmakers made this just thinking at this point only hardcore Pokemon fans are watching the films anyway, then that's another big problem with this movie, is it just feels like it's made for the fans and not to actually be a film. If anything, it felt like an extended television episode. Anyway, let's see. One of the biggest plot points of the film is the evil Hoopa. When Hoopa's unbound form, its true form, is locked away in a little bottle, it seems to develop a mentality of its own, I guess? Because it starts, it becomes its own thing and then uses its powers to try and attack Hoopa, confined, the protagonist, and make it disappear. Now, by disappear, it's pretty much implied that it wants to kill it, which I think is really cool. But it's not supposed to. It manifests itself into its own being, and then it is destroyed because Hoopa talks to it and says, "Let's be friends." What? One of my biggest problems with this film, the one that I learned long before I saw it and thus drastically lowered my expectations of it, is Deus Ex Arceus. The Llama God appears at the very end as the Deus Ex Machina at its fullest. Basically, it shows up just to make sure that something happens to help everything resolve itself, and then he just disappears. That is Deus Ex Machina, something that happens that normally wouldn't, just to help things work out. And he had this weird sound, like a neighing horse, as he walked as he left. It wasn't him talking or anything. It was him literally whinnying, turning around, and flying away. That's all you see of him. I'm okay with Arceus appearing in another movie. I really am. But this does him worse justice than Arceus in the Jewel of Life, and that did him pretty darn bad justice. As I have said already, this movie played like an extended television episode. The pacing was really, really bad. One of the biggest things that stuck out to me is that when Hoopa Confined calls Lugia, literally Ash's reaction is this: "Lugia, help us out, okay?" Ash didn't even know Lugia was going to be there, and yet he just saw it and recognized it instantly and automatically started assuming that it was there to help. And, oh man, that's like, I don't know. I don't know what to call that. When he saw a Lugia in the power of one, he was awestruck. When he saw a Lugia or two in the Orange Islands, he was awestruck. When he sees a Lugia here, he just smiles, nods, and orders it around. Okay. Now, that's not the only thing that's the problem. And I have to say, maybe some of these are due to network cuts, edits in the film. That happens a lot. That they take out little chunks here and there just to save on time so they can run more commercials. That's literally why they do it. Now, so some of this may just be, maybe they did cut out Ash's reaction to seeing a Lugia. It didn't feel like that. This whole film was filled with people reacting unnaturally. If something amazing happened, they pass it off as not that important. Sometimes, when not important things happen, people pass it off as amazing. I remember in particular when Clement saw the bottle for like the 12th time, he reacted like he had seen it the first time. I mean, this is part of the problem with anime, is they always either over-exaggerate or under-exaggerate reactions, and this is a big problem with Pokemon in particular, but it really just stuck out with this film like never before. I really couldn't look at the film with a straight face sometimes because of how unnaturally some people reacted to situations. About halfway through the film, Ash was the only character who had any use whatsoever. The others were all off basically making a new bottle to help confine Hoopa, the true form, and put it inside the little bottle again because it had broken before. So they're building a little bottle, and that literally takes half the film. They're off doing that while Ash is around. Now, this is what I said earlier, is that Ash was good. I really like that he was involved and he was acting like a Pokemon Master should. ordering the Pokemon around to do the right things at the right time, and being right there in the midst of it with no fear. Pokemon Master, great material. I actually do think he's capable of doing it now. Everyone else was on the back burner. You didn't even see them for most of the last half of the film, which, if they're just there as extra weight, why have them in this film at all? I realize that that's because Bonnie, Clement, and Serena are there anyway, with Ash traveling around. And really, the only other two human characters you see on a regular basis are the two they created just for this film. But still, it felt like they were extra baggage. I guess they did with them what they could, but even then, it just didn't work. Sorry, that's just how I feel. One of the last things I noticed is that there are way too many primals or megas or alternate forms or what have you in this film. A total of, I think, 3 Pokemon Mega evolved. Hoopa switched between confined and unbound form constantly, and that's just, I mean, that is, oh, not to mention Primal Groudon and Primal Kyogre, but is this what Pokemon's come to? Looking at Pokemon that can just become more powerful for a few seconds before reverting back, this is what Digimon is, and this is why people were having complaints about Mega Evolution when it first came out, and this movie is a prime example of why it's just maybe a little too overused. It worked great in Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction, where it was used actually as a plot point and as a little bit of a cameo here and there, but in this film it just happens all the time. Most of the time without explanation. Why are Groudon and Kyogre Primal reverted? Why do Mega Latios, Latios, and Rayquaza, why do they Mega Evolve? It's never shown how, it's never explained why. I just feel like there's just too many alternate forms in this movie. It's one thing to have too many legendaries, but you're going to expand on that by also showing multiple forms of those legendaries. Oh man, I pity the poor animators. Lastly, it drags on and on and on and on and on, and it's only 65 minutes long. I can't remember the last time I saw a film that felt like it lasted forever, and it only lasted for about an hour. That's just, oh man. That's a long time ago. That's how long ago it was. So, with this, I just feel like it had too much in it, and it didn't last long enough. If they had maybe made it so that it was just Hoopa Confined versus Hoopa Unbound, and they maybe only called one legendary at a time between them, and made this drag out for maybe even 75 or 80 minutes, another 10 or 15 minutes longer, this could have been a really good film. But no, they had to include every legendary they can think of, basically, I guess, whatever would fit their budget, and just throw them in here, and while we're at it, also throw in the primals and the megas for all those Pokemon as well. So, man, in total we have a 65-minute movie, and only about 20 minutes of that I actually loved. The other 45 just dragged on and on and on trying to get to that point. So by the time you have the movie set up perfectly, it's almost over. I think that is the major downfall with this movie, is it just has too much going for it, but not enough at the same time. In conclusion, this is my least favorite Pokemon film. It does have some great things going for it. I love seeing Hoopa's voice actor really giving this Pokemon a ton of character, someone that we can actually look at and love. I love seeing Ash becoming a Pokemon Master, and there was a little cameo of all the cosplay Pikachus right there in the middle of the film that didn't feel forced at all. It felt really natural. But then there's a ton of other things about it that are just too bad for me to overlook. And, I mean, this is honestly my least favorite Pokemon film now. You're welcome, Destiny Deoxys. Congratulations. You're no longer at my bottom spot. And also, yes, I will make everything wrong with Hoopa and the Clash of Ages. It'll just take a while to get to. In the meantime, here's your review. Thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for more.